Hello, this is Karen Ainsley. I'm a public library consultant at the Indiana State Library.
And this is Jen Clifton, and I'm also a consultant.
We're going to cover today the public library trustee and the public library director, governance, and management.
There is often some confusion over who's responsible for what. So today we'll cover some definitions and examples of the differences in the positions of the library board and director and where they overlap. We'll talk about examples of effective and ineffective management. We'll talk about how the board hires and evaluates a director and the relationship of the board to library staff and an appropriate chain of command.
To begin, a public library is a municipal corporation, or also sometimes thought of as a political subdivision. But as a municipal corporation, it has an appointed 7-member board. And there is the director, and there is the staff. And that is the makeup of your public library. Who's in charge here? Well, there's two entities here that we have to talk about, the trustees or the board, and they are appointed by an appointing authority. And as we said, that's a 7-member board, and 3 of those are school board appointees, and then the others are city council or county appointees. And they're in charge of hiring the library director. But ultimately, the library board is responsible for all that happens in the library. The responsibility of the board is found in the Indiana Code, which we call the part of the Indiana law is IC 36-12. And also some of the other parts that apply to library governance is the Indiana Administrative Code 590, and in that you'll find information about standards. So the governance is involved with developing the policy, hiring a director, planning, and some of that planning is covered in the Administrative Code Rule number 6, and then finally monitoring, evaluating, and advocacy.
So now that we know that the board is responsible for governance, let's talk about the management of the library, which is the responsibility of the director. As the administrative head, the director is responsible for day-to-day management as an employee of the board. The director is responsible for implementing the plans and policies which were established by the board. The director needs to attend monthly board meetings and is also responsible for working directly with staff. The director also needs to report back to the board on matters of interest to the board.
So what does this look like in action? Well, the board is responsible for the big picture stuff.
And the director would handle daily operations and management.
And the board approves, reviews, and revises policy.
The director can recommend and then implement the policies.
The board sets the budget.
And the director would spend accordingly.
The board approves staff appointments, salary schedule.
The director can recommend changes to those schedules.
And the board hires consultants and awards bids.
Well, the director would let the board know that there's a need. Now we'll go into a little bit more detail on the 5 board responsibilities that we mentioned earlier.
One of these board responsibilities in developing is to develop policies. So when writing new policies, you would get input from the director and the staff, and you'd want to forecast as far as other policies you might need. And then you would review and revise existing policies on a regular basis. You'd maintain them in a notebook and review them regularly and revise as needed. Also, the board is directly responsible for their bylaws, so you'd want to have a schedule to amend or review those bylaws.
The next responsibility of the board is hiring the library director. Some important things to look for are good leadership skills, as the director will represent the library to the community. Communication skills are important, as the director will need to speak with both staff and the public about the library. They need to have integrity. They need to have a vision and think strategically about the library and where it'll be in the future. It's best that they have people skills and are able to understand how to work with their staff. It's good if they have budget and finance know-how, so they understand how the library's budget works. And then it's really important that they're just a good fit with the current state of the library.
When we talk about planning, it's two parts. We're talking about the strategic long-range planning, which is a 3 to 5 year plan with the goals and vision of what the library plans to do in terms of services to the community. But that also requires a budget. So the long-range plan would include a budget, but we also talk about the annual budget and finance, which is an 18-month plan where you consider whether your community is growing or contracting, would affect your assessed value, tax rate, and tax levy. And you may have money, but you only have the authority to spend with the appropriations. That is an approved budget by the Department of Local Government Finance. Some of the issues that you take into consideration are, of course, your expenditures and what the encumbrances are and what your revenue is. What is the money coming in? And when you compare those expenditures and revenue, you want to be tracking cash flow.
The fourth responsibility of the board is to monitor and evaluate what's going on at the library. So the board will receive monthly director reports that should include information on staff, library services, facilities, policies, planning, resolutions, and then a financial report. The board is also responsible for evaluating the director. To do this, they'll need to set goals. The board will need to consider the director's staff relationships and their own relationship with the director. They'll need to consider if the director is helping the library meet objectives in the strategic plan. They'll need to evaluate the library's financial stability. They'll look at the quality of library services. Is the library meeting the needs of its community? They'll look at the director's progress with community relations. And then finally, the library facilities. Is the building a comfortable place for the community to come? Next, the board needs to evaluate yourselves. Consider, are you all informed? Are you staying on task? Is everyone active and engaged in your meetings? And then also you need to consider the library's finances again. How is the board helping to meet those needs?
And the fifth and final board responsibility is advocacy. You're out there in the community so that you can help be an extension of the library as far as outreach. Communicate with lawmakers and appointing authorities, and certainly communicate with community at community functions and to help the library reach those other people. One of the responsibilities you might want to consider is the responsibility to appointing authorities. Perhaps as a courtesy, provide reports and suggestions, either oral or written. Share the library's newsletter with the appointing authorities. So, and it goes both ways. You also represent the appointing authority, so act in accordance with their wishes, attend board meetings regularly, and certainly be prepared. A few more things to remember are the do's and don'ts. Follow the open door law. That is the laws that you have to have a public meeting in the 48-hour notice. And most importantly, attend every meeting if possible. You have to have a quorum in order to conduct business. Stay informed. Seek out training and professional organizations and reach out to the state libraries when you need more information. And it's important to distinguish between rubber stamping and micromanaging. You want to establish a fine balance between, governing and these other areas where you accept everything that's put before you, or if you are trying to control the situation or micromanage it.
The director has numerous responsibilities to the board as well. It's the director's job to stay educated on the library field by attending conferences and trainings. They need to know the law and any changes to the law, including the Indiana Public Library standards. It's the responsibility of the director to inform the board through their director's report. A director needs to maintain the appropriate certification as specified in the Indiana Public Library standards. And a director should make use of all possible resources.
An important point is your relationships with the staff. Respect the chain of command. Staff should communicate with the director, and the board communicates directly to the director. In addition, the library needs to have a personnel manual, and we have resources at the state library to assist that. And also to have that all-important grievance policy in case that those grievances arise. Other resources that are of big help are the State Board of Accounts that issues a library accounting manual that's available online. And the other agency that is valuable is the Department of Local Government Finance. They issue a budget manual, and they have the gateway, as does the State Board of Accounts, in which your online reports are submitted. Those two gateway reports are for the State Board of Accounts is the annual financial report, and the budget is submitted to the Department of Local Government Finance through the gateway.
In case you're ever wondering why things are done a certain way or have been done a certain way, there's a number of resources you might consult with. We've got a manual for Indiana Public Library trustees, and that is called In the Public Trust, and that's available on our website. You can also refer to the Indiana Public Library Law, which is in the Indiana Code 36-12. That Section 12 is all related to public libraries in the state. It's also covered by the Indiana Code 423, and that's related to all boards within the state. We also have Indiana Library and Historical Board Rules, or ILHB, which controls the Indiana Public Library standards that we mentioned earlier. And then finally, all boards in the state need to adhere to the Indiana Open Door Law. And you can learn more about that from the Public Access Counselor's website. In addition to all of those laws, there are plenty of other resources for you as a library trustee. The Indiana State Library has public library consultants that are available to answer any of your questions. Your library also has a regional coordinator that's assigned to your library. We provide publications on legal and library topics frequently, and then we also maintain listservs that libraries and trustees can use to communicate with one another and get ideas. The Indiana Library Federation also has a division for library trustees, the Indiana Library Trustee Association. They also have a Friends of the Indiana Libraries group. And then the American Library Association has a division for trustees, which is called United for Libraries. The Indiana State Library's Library Development Office can be reached anytime by email at statewide-services@library.in.gov. We're in office Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern, and we're a toll-free call away at 800-451-6028.